Hello and welcome to another episode of the NTN Morning Program. We are coming to you live today, this time from the Finance Administrative Center in close proximity to the next activity to be aired live on NTN. That is the launch of the Medium-Term Development Strategy. My name is Jessie Leonce. I'd like to thank you so much for joining. If you're watching on air, online, our YouTube, our Facebook and Channel 122 platforms, we do appreciate you tuning in, keeping abreast as to what's happening here in St. Lucia. And now to the developments coming out of the island from the government of St. Lucia. We have COVID-19 cases surpassing 100. We got that update from the Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Sharon Belmar-George, yesterday. We've passed the 100 mark with 73 people in care. In other news, St. Lucia and Taiwan embark on an innovative week of activities in the Partnership Trade Show and celebrating the milestone of 2 centenarians. We have the details to these stories and more coming up right after this break. We also have a special interview as we continue for the countdown toward the launch of the new round of the launch of the 7th operational program for the Global Environment Facility Small Grants Program of the UNDP here in St. Lucia. The countdown is on for the launch, and we're speaking to someone from the apiculture industry that is playing a very big role in terms of the work that the Small Grants Program is playing here in St. Lucia. So stay tuned for that and more coming up right after this break.
Coronavirus? But children are safe, no?
Hold up. Children are actually more likely to touch all kinds of surfaces, put their hands on their mouths and their eyes, or sneeze and cough with little thought about hygiene when around others. While children have been seen to recover well from this virus, they can easily spread it to those more at risk, like the elderly or ill persons who have a weaker immune system. Teach the little ones in your care to be little powerhouses of infection prevention. Keep reminding them, wash your hands. Cover your mouth with tissue or your inner elbow when you sneeze and cough. And be sure to praise them when you see them taking these precautions. Our health is in our hands. Together, through simple actions, we can stop the spread of coronavirus. This message was brought to you by the Bureau of Health Education of the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
Thank you so much for staying with us. If you're just joining us, a special good morning to you. We are coming to you with our morning program live on NTN from the Finance Administrative Center in close proximity to the next activity to be held shortly and aired live on NTN as well. That is the Medium-Term Development Strategy launch of the government of St. Lucia. That is coming up after this program. Meantime, Wednesday, November 4th, that is yesterday, the Ministry of Health received confirmation of 8 new cases of COVID-19. This brings the total number of cases diagnosed in country to date to 105. The new cases now bring the number of active cases currently in country to 73. All cases remain stable, and according to the Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Sharon Belmar-George, there are no cases requiring critical care.
Case number 98 is a 33-year-old female from the Miku district. Case number 99 is a 36-year-old female from the Sufre district. Case number 100 is a 45-year-old male from the Babano district. Case number 101 is a 4-year-old female from the Vieux Fort district. Case number 102 is a 4-year-old female from the Vieux Fort district. Case number 103 is a 54-year-old female from the Labrie district. Case number 104 is a 55-year-old female from the Labrie district. Case number 105 is a 50-year-old male from the Grosile district. All of the cases following testing for COVID-19 were placed in quarantine awaiting their test results. 4 of these cases were identified through the contact tracing process, and epidemiological links have been established for 3 cases. Case number 98 is linked to case number 55, number 77, and number 92. Case number 101 and 102 are linked to case number 68. Case number 103 and 104 were identified through the community outreach activity undertaken in Labrie.
Dr. Belmar George is urging all nationals to not only practice good hygiene but also healthy living.
As we continue to record new cases of COVID-19 in country, it is important that we all make a special effort to keep ourselves well. Be sure to eat a balanced meal, which are low in salt, fat, and added sugars. Make time for physical activity daily. This can include a walk, swimming, or even backyard gardening. Remain hydrated by drinking water throughout the day. These daily health habits will help to build the body's ability to fight off infectious illnesses. If you are living with a chronic condition, these guidelines also apply to help keeping you in control and to keep you healthy. With that, we also encourage you to take any prescription medication as prescribed. Do not skip doses and ensure there is always a month's supply to ensure you do not run out of medication. We ask that while we intensify our response, that we all continue to practice the guidelines to reduce the exposure to the virus.
Medical Officer Dr. Sharon Belmar George. Just want to remind you that we are coming to you live on NTN from the Finance Administrative Center, where we're also on standby for the next event to be aired live. We're in close proximity to that activity. Right now, it is the Strategic Plan 2020-2023 launch event of the Division of Economic Development within the Department of Economic Development, Transport and Civil Aviation. So please, we hope you can stay tuned for the duration of this morning's program and thereafter the launch of the strategic plan for 2020-2023. Continuing with news, in the coming weeks, authorities will introduce a GPS tracking system for all registered fishing vessels as part of efforts to strengthen border management amid the pandemic. Prime Minister Honorable Alan Shastney made the disclosure after a meeting with fisherfolk representatives on Wednesday, 4th November 2020. We go to a report now. Mounting concerns over illicit border entry from neighboring COVID-19 hotspots have prompted the government of St. Lucia to introduce heightened control measures at sea. Following a meeting with fisherfolk to review the one-week suspension of fishing licenses earlier this week, authorities announced plans to introduce a tracking system to monitor all registered fishing vessels when offshore.
The longer-term or intermediate solution, and that is really within the next 3 weeks, the government will be investing in a GPS system, so all fishing boats and all private boats in St. Lucia will be compelled to have a GPS system installed.
Tracking device.
Tracking device.
GPS tracking.
Which will be done through the satellite, so it means that we would know at all times where boats have been.
Prime Minister Shastney says this intervention will be a triple solution, also assisting law enforcement in stolen vessels and lost at sea investigations. Prime Minister Shastney apologizes to fishermen who were inconvenienced by COVID-19 response measures, stressing that decisive action was imperative given the risk.
I could honestly say that I do not believe the vast majority of the fisher folk are in any way participating in it. But it's very difficult for the police or the law enforcement officers to make that distinction. I have apologized to the fisher folk because there probably should have been an immediate consultation with them as it pertained to that. But the intention was to do that this week.
Meantime, former president of the Groselay Fishermen's Cooperative, Ricky McDoom, encourages fishermen to cooperate with the authorities.
We want to appeal to the bona fide fishers, and we have made a commitment that we are going to work together with the authorities, the fisheries department, the police, to help them with information that is going to curb any form of illicit activities, whether it is human trafficking, and we know one of the biggest problems before COVID was a drug issue.
The Marine Unit of the Royal St. Lucia Police Force appeals to residents in St. Lucia who may have information on individuals who facilitate smuggling into the island to come forward. For the Government Information Service, I am Jessie Leonce reporting. As part of the national response to contain the spread of the pervasive COVID-19 virus, the St. Lucia Air and Seaports Authority, SLASPA, has implemented an appointment system for the clearing of personal effects cargo at Port Castries in the first instance. This appointment system commenced on Monday, November 2nd, 2020, and takes effect on Wednesday, November 4th, 2020. That was yesterday. Only persons with scheduled appointments will be accommodated at the port for business. We have Herma Demac with more.
Concerns over continued community spread of COVID-19 has caused the St. Lucia Air and Seaports Authority, SLASPA, to institute some new measures in clearing and collecting personal effects from Port Castries. A similar system at Port Vieux-Fort will be implemented in the coming weeks.
Persons clearing personal effects cargo would not be allowed to come to the ports without an appointment to clear such cargo. This is for Port Castries in the first instance, and a similar initiative will be rolled out at Port Vieux-Fort in the coming weeks.
The Assistant Controller at Customs and Excise, Eva Duterville, is also encouraging the public to pay attention to the new requirements and protocols.
Only customers with appointments for specific consignments will be attended to. So we encourage everyone to make appointments with SLASPA for the number of consignments you need to clear out of customs charge. Everyone is to wear a mask as mandated by our health officials.
Persons seeking to clear personal effects at Port Castries must make an appointment via WhatsApp at 285-1091 or 285-1175, Monday to Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. Before heading to the port for the confirmed appointments, please ensure that you carry all documents that will be required by Customs and Excise Department and SLASPA.
1. The name in detail, that's your first name, your last name, the bill of lading or delivery number, your identification card number, a contact number, and the vehicle registration number.
If you are clearing on behalf of someone, you need a copy of their ID card and an authorization letter from them.
SLASPA says the new measurements are being implemented with guidance from the health officials and in accordance with strict COVID-19 protocols. Director of Air and Seaports, Adrian Hilaire, has called for patience as these measures are to ensure the health of customers and employees of SLASPA and Customs and Excise.
I know it's a new initiative. I know persons are accustomed of coming to the port as soon as they get the documentation. I'd like to appeal to everyone to work with us. The aim is not to inconvenience you. The aim is to keep you safe.
Again, SLASPA has reiterated that from November 4th, only persons with appointments and proper documentation will be allowed into the ports for clearing or collecting goods.
SLASPA reiterates that from November 4th, only persons with appointments and proper documentation will be allowed into the ports for clearing or collecting goods. From the Government Information Service, I'm Herma Demac.
The first business-related event titled Caribbean and Pacific Islands Tourism Marketing Campaign will be held on 5th November 2020 in Taipei. The exhibition is hosted by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the ROC, Taiwan, Taiwan External Trade Development Council, and the Embassy of St. Lucia in Taiwan, aiming to promote St. Lucia's export products and tourism industry. The two follow-up events are the 2020 Partnership Opportunity Delegation Online Conference and the Virtual Online Startup Workshop, which will be both held in St. Lucia with associations with the U.S. Embassy to Barbados, the East Caribbean, and the OECS. It focuses on attracting investment from Taiwan and the U.S. private companies to stimulate St. Lucia's economy. The ambassador, Taiwan's ambassador to St. Lucia, His Excellency Peter Chen, explains further.
Never let a good crisis go to waste. Where others see volatility, we shall see opportunities for prosperity and building global partnership. Taiwan has committed to work with the people and government of St. Lucia and all partners, promoting trade and business and people-to-people connectivity. I believe we will weather the crisis together and remain proactive in expanding international cooperation.
The Center for Adolescent Renewal, that is CARE, and Upton Garden Girls Center are receiving support from corporate entity CIBC First Caribbean International Bank. We have details in this report. At-risk adolescents are the latest beneficiaries under CIBC First Caribbean's Adopt a Cause program in St. Lucia. As the bank continues to adapt its corporate social responsibility efforts to meet the changing circumstances brought on by the COVID-19 pandemic, it has shifted focus from the primary schools to rehabilitative and development institutions on island.
This year represents a departure from the past. We've selected to concentrate our programs on the Center for Adolescent Renewal and Education, or CARE, and the Upton Garden Girls Center. We're therefore very proud to announce that the bank will be providing tablets for 4 centers across the island for use by the students for educational purposes. The center requested 8 devices. However, we undertook to increase that number by 2 so as to ensure that each center is covered.
The 10 devices donated to the Center for Adolescent Renewal CARE for its skills development program are valued at $6,000. CARE's executive director, Carleen Mason, says this donation will complement the center's blended learning activities amid the pandemic.
So many of our trainees are not able to connect to our online platforms because they do not have the devices. So rest assured that these tablets will be greatly used. What we have found is that even though some of the trainees may have internet access, because they do not have the correct devices, the instruction is placed and they are unable to get it. But this gift will greatly enhance what the trainees would now be able to do.
CIBC First Caribbean also presented a check to the Upton Garden Girls Center for $5,000. On hand to collect the check is Jacqueline Matthias Simeon, director at the center.
Upton Gardens Girls Center is positioning itself to become a viable second chance for young women in the country. We have introduced our CSEC and CVQ programs effective January 2020. Of course, COVID has brought some interruptions to that. However, this generous donation will go directly to our scholarship fund. That fund covers school uniforms, transportation, and in the future it will cover examination fees as we prepare young women for CSEC and CVQ courses.
CIBC First Caribbean has pledged continued support to both institutions going forward.
We intend to augment this effort with other training delivered by officers of the bank, such as mentorship for the CARE program and for Upton Gardens Center, providing job interview, coaching, and workplace preparation sessions. We truly hope that in doing so, we will make a meaningful contribution to your personal development, and these tools will be a catalyst to spur learning and career opportunities as we look forward to hearing the testimonials in the near future.
From the Government Information Service, I am Jessie Leonce reporting. That report there on CIBC First Caribbean's corporate social responsibility activities. And just to go back to the St. Lucia Taiwan Business Partnership Week, businesses, startups, and individuals who are interested in these events are welcome to visit the embassy's website for more information. And finally, in our news cycle for the last 24 hours, St. Lucia is celebrating the milestone of 2 centenarians from the Groseille district. Here once again is Herma with a report.
Centenarians are rare, and it is a marvel to hear a person celebrating their 100th birthday. The government of St. Lucia is recognizing 2 such individuals celebrating 100 years of life and counting. The first is Marie Charles, more affectionately known as Massien. Marie was born on the 1st of November 1920. 100 years later, she lives to celebrate with family in her community of Deremo Moshi. At a small gathering on her 100th birthday, the government presented Marie with tokens of appreciation. The centenarian says although she's uncertain what allows a person to live this long, she believes diet is important.
Nobody can manger. This is one manger. Nobody can manger bois pain, macambou, fig, farine, on manger. Un banja, nous devons manger tout ce bail-ça. C'est ça qui fait. Si l'on mange, on peut manger. Si l'on mange, on peut manger. Si c'est fig, on peut manger des graines de fig. Si c'est macambou, on peut manger 3 graines. Si l'on mange, on peut manger.
Okay. Marie says she's no longer able to move around, but she is thankful to have her sight. Massian outlived 8 siblings and is the mother of 7 children, 2 of which have died. She was employed with the government of St. Lucia for several years as a cook, has worked as a farmhand, and was well known as a market vendor selling brooms, charcoal, and farine, which she also produced. The second centenarian is Eldika Nicholas, also of Deremo Moshi. She reached the milestone of 106 years on the 23rd of October 2020. The centenarian was presented with hampers by the Minister for Equity, Social Justice, Local Government and Empowerment and the Parliamentary Representative for Grosley, Honorable Leonard Montoute. Honorable Montoute wished Eldika a happy birthday and toasted to her long life.
Bonne santé, bon la vie, pour continuer à enjoy God. Yeah? Happy birthday.
Eldika attributes her long life to the grace of God and is thankful for the gift of many years. From the Government Information Service, I am Hermedy Mark.
Happy birthday to these centenarians. We are due for a break. That story just wrapped up our news for the 24-hour cycle. When we come back, we speak to Mr. Richard Matthias, who is heavy on apiculture here in St. Lucia. And as we count down to the launch of the 7th cycle of the operational program of the Jeff SGP UNDP in St. Lucia, scheduled for this coming Monday. We're talking about some of the work that they've done in the last year. They released their annual report and also plans going forward to further boost the apiculture sector here in St. Lucia. Stay with us.
Coronavirus? I am worried, Gassa. It's only old people dying from that.
Hold up. Being young does not mean being safe. Yes, it's true that the elderly are at higher risk, but anyone can get the virus. The effect is even worse if you have a chronic condition like hypertension, heart disease, lung disease, and diabetes, or weakness in your immune system. If you are living with these conditions, be extra careful. Wash your hands with soap and water. Use hand sanitizer with at least 60% alcohol when hand washing is not possible. Avoid touching your face. Take steps to boost your immunity through proper nutrition, exercise, rest, and take your medication as prescribed. Limit being around people who have flu symptoms, even close family members. Our health is in our hands. Together, through simple actions, we can stop the spread of coronavirus. This message was brought to you by the Bureau of Health Education of the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, good morning to you. Welcome, welcome. We are live on NTN, coming to you from the Finance Administrative Center for our morning programming. It brings us in closer proximity to the launch that will be held shortly, the launch of the Strategic Plan 2020-2023 of the Division of Economic Development in the Department of Economic Development, Transport and Civil Aviation, to begin in just a moment. But in the meantime, we're bringing you the latest developments coming from the government of St. Lucia, as well as our usual interview segment. If you were watching yesterday, we spoke to Mr. Giles Romulus from the Global Environment Facility Small Grants Program of the United Nations Development Program, the UNDP. and we set about to speaking on the activities that have been happening, the grants that have been given out in the last year. The organization has since released their annual report, and leading in terms of the activities is support for the apiculture industry here in St. Lucia. So we continue with that, and especially as we look to and count down toward the launch of the 7th operational program of the Jeff SGP UNDP in St. Lucia. We have with us Mr. Richard Matthias. He is the Secretary of the Association of Caribbean Beekeepers Organizations and the President of the Ianola Agriculture Collective, to speak to us on the upcoming activities surrounding the Jeff Small Grants Program of the UNDP for apiculture, as well as taking a look back at the strides that have been made so far for apiculture here on island. A special good morning to you, Mr. Matthias. Thank you so much for joining.
Yes, thank you.
Wonderful. I would like to start with just establishing apiculture for the benefit of our viewers, what apiculture is all about, and just give us an understanding of what the community of apiary keepers are like in St. Lucia.
Well, the apiculture sector in St. Lucia is very diverse and dynamic. It's currently growing with a lot of young beekeepers coming into the sector, so which is getting some more buoyancy, as well as the government's making several interventions, as long as organizations such as Jeff SGB, they've invested significantly in assisting the growth of the apiculture sector. So we're seeing some buoyancy in the sector, and projects, organizations such as the one I'm a member of, the Ianola Apiculture Collective. We have been doing a lot of work in the apiculture sector, incorporating a lot of training, as well as trying to diversify into the tourism sector as well. So bringing the apiculture product to visitors of the island so that they can experience it and see some of the culture of apiculture as it's developed over the many years in St. Lucia.
Okay, so beekeeping is alive and well here on island.
Very much so, very much so. To the point where I think hundreds of thousands of dollars have been invested through the Jeff Small Grants program over the last few years. I'm sure Mr. Romulus would have gone into that in great detail. So it's a developing sector. One of the areas that our organization has gone into, as well as tourism, we've also gone into working with the byproducts of the bees. So we're working at developing a lot of propolis, and also our main focus is on the production of apitoxin, which is the bee venom, which has a number of multiple uses within the medical sector to help things like multiple sclerosis, cancer, and the treatment of Lyme disease. So there's many treatments that you could do. So it's a very profitable product to work with, and we're looking at developing that sector.
And speaking about the diversification of apiculture here on island, tell us a little bit more about the work that has been achieved with the help of the Small Grants Program of the Global Environment Facility, Jeff, in the last year.
Well, in the last year, I know that Mr. Romulus has worked with a number of community groups in Canaries, in Grace, us being in the Castries and ancillary area. So there's a lot of development. I know in Grace there was a developer of a small processing facility to process honey, and it's all solar powered. In the community of Canaries, there were a group of young persons that they've been working with there to help them get to establish the apiculture sector. And the Ianola Apiculture Collective, we are an island-wide organization, so we have members throughout the island, and we've been doing a lot of expansion in the Vieux-Fort area, in the Castries area, Debarra area, Prale areas. So we've been expanding our output, increasing our production.
Okay. Speak to us about training, because you mentioned a little bit earlier, and I hope you could delve into it a little bit more about the diversification of apiculture here in St. Lucia. We know that there is a lot of potential for these other areas, the apitoxin you mentioned, the beeswax, creation of these byproducts. Speak to us about the training that has happened so far for beekeepers in the move toward that effort.
During the course of this year, as a response to persons probably losing their mainstay of income and having to fall back on the apiculture production, or the honey production as an income source, the I Know Apiculture Collective, we did a number of training seminars for beekeepers in helping them to maximize the potential of expanding the number of colonies that they have, and also giving them some insight into queen rearing. And we gave away over maybe about just under 300 queens during a 2-month period in the months of July and August to help beekeepers expand the amount of colonies as well. So the important part of a colony is the queen. So if you have available queens, you can divide your colonies and introduce a new queen into the new colonies, thus increasing your honey production. So we did that as part of our effort to help people, or for our fellow beekeepers during the COVID period, and country was on shutdown, to try to at least to help them to increase the potential of revenue they could derive from their beekeeping businesses.
The idea of research and innovation, diversification of that industry, has the reception been of beekeepers here in St. Lucia to the idea of expanding beekeeping, expanding apiculture to a science?
Well, that's one of the key areas of the Apiculture Collective, is to bring the craft of beekeeping to intermingle better with the science of beekeeping. So the reception, obviously, when you come up with new ideas and new concept, it takes a little bit before people accept it. But I think over the last year, people have really understood what we've been trying to accomplish. And even so much as that, we've been able to attract training opportunities for our organization out regionally. So we've actually been working with a group in Trinidad and Tobago prior to the onset of COVID. So once this situation stabilizes, we'll be going over to Trinidad to continue our training with these gentlemen over in these beekeepers in Trinidad. And that's through another Jeff SGP unit in that area.
Okay. And if you could get into the honey production as a result, have we seen an increase in honey production in the last year? Well,
increases in honey production would have a number of factors that would have to impact on them. So it's not, first of all, you would have to have the capacity. So there needs to be enough new colonies or colonies of bees to generate the capacity you require. But secondary, you need to have the forage that is available. So favorable weather conditions and the good availability of forage will be contributing factors to honey production, as well as good hive management, good husbandry by the beekeeper. So these three factors would be the key factors in the overall output of honey. But I think this year would have been a good year. We had favorable weather conditions, although the last week or so has not been so nice. We had 6 continuous days of rain. But it's been very good. This year has been a good year. Last year was a good year, and I think 2021 will be an even better year for honey production.
Wonderful. And this going back to Jeff and the Small Grants Program, we know after we have the launch next week, we will have subsequently the knowledge fair from Jeff. Can you just speak to us about how apiculture is being considered and incorporated into the activities for November going forward? Okay, great. So the knowledge fair is being launched on the 22nd of November in conjunction with the launch of the Caribbean Beekeepers Congress. The 10th Beekeepers Congress. This is a series of beekeeping congresses that have been going over biannually for the last 20 years, which originally started in Nevis.
So we're going to have a week of activities starting from the 22nd, and one of the great things that's going to be happening, we've got some really great presentations. Let's start off. We have the president of rural development of Apimondia. She'll be making a video presentation for us. We will also have Miss Jennifer Holmes from Slow Foods, and also the president of the Florida Beekeeping Association making a presentation. And we'll also have His Excellency, the Ambassador to Trinidad and Tobago, His Excellency the Ambassador to India, of India to Trinidad and Tobago, will be making a presentation. We'll sending greetings from India, because we have been working closely with a group from India in the development of a beekeeping app, a beekeeping management app. So we've been working closely with them for the last 3 months, and we're going to launch that app at the Congress. So that's bilateral cooperation between beekeepers in the Caribbean and beekeepers in India. So this is how we're expanding our footprint throughout the world. So that's going to be launched. And then we have a week long of great activities. We kick off on one of our most important presenters and our most accomplished beekeepers from the region will be a presentation from Dr. Velma Jessamy on the 25th of November, the morning of the 25th of November. And that will be followed by presentations from Dr. Lena Demble-Wolf of Trinidad and Tobago, who will be talking about climate change and neotropical pollinators. Myself and a colleague, Dr. Kurt Prosper, will be making a presentation on technology-supported apiculture. And then we'll have almost 15 country papers from different islands and countries around the Caribbean who will be making presentations of how beekeeping is progressing in their various different territories. So that'll be our first full day of the Congress, which will be the 25th of November. On the 26th, we have a great presentation from Josie Lewis of India, Being Personal Bees and Beekeeping from India. So this is a team from India we've been working with. So they'll be making a presentation on the work that they've been doing in India on the development of beekeeping in rural communities. And one of the things that we've worked together and is to put this app together to help that resource and the management. We'll also be having another presentation from Dr. Terry Mohammed and his team on honey testing and they'll be out of the University of the West Indies. So they've perfected different techniques to test the honeys for its medicinal properties, to test it for the presence of antibiotics and pesticides, so to meet European and North American importation standards. They've also done a lot of important work on pollen testing, so they can scan the honey and trace the pollen traces, and they'll be able to tell you exactly what flowers or trees the bees were visiting to develop the nectar source for the honey. Nice. So that's very important for when you want to specifically reference a particular flavor of honey to a particular region of a country or any island. So if anybody, say for instance, was to try to import honey into Trinidad from, say, China, for instance, they could do this trace on it, and they say no, there's no pollen from it which is indigenous to Trinidad and Tobago, so this honey did not come from Trinidad. All right, so it's all part of trying to protect the regional brand, protect Caribbean honeys, so that we will know exactly what products, what honeys are from within our region. So so that's part of a bigger picture of to try to protect our market space for our honey, to be branded as honey from the Caribbean, as opposed to the not so nice imported honeys from around the world.
And speaking of market penetration, how far has St. Lucia gotten in terms of getting into beyond the region? And I know there's been a major crackdown globally on fake
Fake honey.
Fake honey, especially
Yes.
coming from certain regions in the world. So how is St. Lucia's industry contending with that?
Well, as I said, St. Lucia's industry of honey production is very buoyant, and we still have the favorable challenge of trying to produce enough honey to meet our own home market. So we haven't reached critical mass as in production that we have excess that is available for export. There are organizations that are pursuing the export potential of honey, and through the testing, making. So one of the first stepping stones that they're working on is to put. I know that the Export St. Lucia has been working with a number of beekeeping organizations on Ireland to establish a standard framework, so that if you're going to try to export your honey across to North America and Europe, it needs to conform to certain health standards, and these are the health standards in place that you need to do. Your record keeping needs to be in place to this standard. So I think Export St. Lucia is doing some work in that regards, so that in the future, that when we do critical mass and we have an excess production to export, this will be useful mechanism that they could tap into.
Apitourism, you mentioned earlier. Speak to us about that potential and the significance it plays for St. Lucia. We've so far seen village tourism emerging.
Yes.
St. Lucia is really perching itself for the resurgence of tourism.
Sure. Well, one of the things that we've been working with the Ionola Apiculture Collective, has been working with Cox & Company, destination management organization, and we've produced a tour which they think has got great marketable potential, and it's currently listed for the 2021 cruise ship season. Nice. So it's being marketed overseas currently. That tour is actually based we have our interpretation center is based in Fiji, where we have kind of like a really nice setup where you can see some of the historical hives, you can see a little bit of the history of apiculture in St. Lucia. And then we have a young lady by the name of Miss Roberts, who is Shakima Roberts, who does a candle making demonstration as part of our program. So you can get to sit down and make your own candles and add your own essential oils and scents, and you get a really nice product at the end of it to go with. And then we also go down, we do a hive inspection where you can taste honey directly from the hives. You can mingle with the bees, and it's a great experience.
I want to go.
Well, there you go. So you see, so it's a little bit of the tourism, it adds an additional dimension, a little more than just sand and sea.
Yeah.
You get to experience a little bit of apiculture, and there's a great buzz on beekeeping around the world, and the importance of bees to biodiversity of your countries around the world. So I mean, 30% of the food you consume will be pollinated by a bee.
I was coming to that, because when you talk of bees now, it's part of the whole earth conscious conversation. Just speak to the importance of biodiversity at this point in time. I know Mr. Romulus yesterday, he spoke very strongly about the protection of our mangroves and so on. Speak to the significance of biodiversity, our environment, to the strength of apiculture.
Well, bees are an integral part of the biodiversity. Even though the western honeybee is not endemic to the Caribbean, you've got other pollinators such as stingless bees and hummingbirds, which are very important to the biodiversity of the island. So when we start chopping down trees, we are now sacrificing the food sources of all these other animals. So that it's very important that we really try to turn back the dial on deforestation, and if you do cut a tree, plant back a tree in exchange for it. The coconut tree you drink coconut water from today was planted by somebody many years ago. Your grandfather may have planted that tree for you to drink coconuts from it. So we really have to start paying it forward for the next generation.
Wonderful. And going forward in the coming year, we see that Jeff SGP has assisted with the thriving and the pursuits of and the efforts of apiculture here on island.
Yes.
What are beekeepers in St. Lucia looking forward to in terms of assistance from Jeff?
Well, I
this
think
coming year.
I think one of the biggest things that we have come, I've been a part of, which I know is coming in the coming year, is that hopefully we will, I wouldn't say hopefully, I would say we will have the establishment of the Centre of Excellence for Apiculture in St. Lucia. And when that resource is created and is open and available to not just beekeepers in St. Lucia, but beekeepers from throughout the region, we'll be able to train persons from just the basics right up. So we'll take you from beekeeping 101 to advanced beekeeping. So that's the concept and the idea behind that, and hopefully we should be able to create a unique product which will also, through the educational output from that institution that we're creating, it will also attract university graduates from around the world, Europe, North America, that want to participate and learn a bit about the biodiversity of the Caribbean, and to see what the bee has to offer as a pollinator in the different contexts of the Caribbean, as opposed to looking at it from a North American or European context.
Okay, wonderful. And finally from me, the Congress, the activities surrounding it, can you just tell us how persons can get involved? Because after this interview, I'm certain there are many young persons who are thinking about a viable business and beekeeping, a eureka moment for them.
Definitely. Well, you could look to register to attend virtually. You can go to acboonline.com, acboonline.com, and you can go through the schedule and you click on register, and you'll be able to register to attend this either virtually. We do have a very limited amount of persons that can attend the Congress due to social distancing issues, but we'll be our command center venue will be at the Orchid Center. So I mean, we're in Union. So if you have a chance, you're in the area, there is space, you can maybe stop in. But if we're full, it'll be tight. But I mean, beekeeping is a community. What we're trying to do through our work in beekeeping is to bring all the beekeepers together so that they can fundamentally function as one living hive. And that's what the Congress is about, bringing all the beekeepers together, learning the resources, learning the experiences that we've had. We've gone as far as field. We have presentations from France, we have presentations from India, America, the United Kingdom. So it'd be a great experience. We'll have presentations from beekeeping organizations as far north, I think, as Jamaica, Haiti, Belize, and as far south as Guyana. So you should have a cross spectrum of beekeepers from the region and getting their perspective on what's been happening in their respective countries.
Wonderful. I'd like to thank you so much. Any final words?
No, just get busy like a bee, man. And apiculture is more than just honey. You've got so many other byproducts you can produce from honey. So it's a great business opportunity. It's not money for year 1, year 2, maybe year 3, when you've learned enough and you've built up your capacity of bees, you should be able to make a living out of it.
Wonderful.
Okay.
It was a very full interview. We didn't even have time to talk about your own business.
Yeah, well, maybe another time. Maybe another time.
Definitely looking forward to perhaps visiting sometime, bringing our morning program to your site.
Definitely. You can do that anytime.
Wonderful. Mr. Richard Matthias there, the president of the Association of Beekeepers Organizations and president of the Ianola Apiculture Collective here in St. Lucia. I'd like to thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
And he's just speaking as we count down toward the launch of the 7th operational program of the Jeff Small Grants Program, UNDP, here in St. Lucia, and that will be happening on Monday. We That's all the time we have for now for this morning. I'd like to thank you so much for watching, listening to the news at first, and this very important interview on the apiculture industry here on Ireland. We are on standby now for the commencement of the Strategic Plan 2020-2023 launch of the Division of Economic Development within the Department of Economic Development, Transport and Civil Aviation, right here at the Finance Administrative Center here in Point Seraphine. So we do hope that after this program you stay tuned to NTN for this important launch. My name is Jessie Leonce. Please be reminded that we have crossed the 100 mark for COVID-19 here in St. Lucia in terms of confirmed cases, and we have quite a few active cases at the respiratory hospital. We hope that you are adhering to the protocols, especially for the 30-day period, that tighter, more stringent protocols have been put in place for the protection of the population. Do keep safe in your going out and coming in, and stay tuned to NTN for more programming. Goodbye. Have a good day.